Reddit, what is your cringe-worthiest story ever? My first time learning to water ski. I was a natural at it and had so much fun until I crashed. Water shot straight up my butt at 30 miles per hour and tore part of my rectum. The boat zipped back around to get me because I sank and they thought my leg was broken. But instead I got hauled out of the water by my life jacket with blood streaming out of my butt. Not one of my finest moments. One time, in elementary school, I was sick and asked the teacher to go to the office so I could call my dad. I went to the office and there were two phones. One for the intercom and one for outside calls. I decided not to ask and to just use the first phone I saw. I proceeded to call my father and tell him my tummy feels bad and he replied with "Don't you worry, I'll be there soon to pick you up." Turns out I had used the intercom phone and that my call with my father was broadcasted throughout the entire school. To everyone. It still makes feel awful every time I think about it. At least you didn't have chronic shotgun diarrhea. My parents called me into their room a while back and asked why. I said "Excuse me, why what?" out of sheer confusion and utter panic that they had found out I had done something wrong. My dad just looked at me dead in the eyes and in a voice that was quiet and sad, "We know what you've been looking at on the computer. It hurts me, us, that you can't even be honest with us about that. So why did you do it?" At this point in my mind I am flipping my crap. I'm evaluating whether they saw my standard vanilla pee, or some of the stuff that is out there. I'm wondering how the heck am I going to play this off, and I'm wondering if I am going to get in insane amounts of trouble depending on what they saw. At this point my mind is racing and eventually I just start to cry. Yes, cry, I know. I'm a little bee. And I say through the tears I don't know. It just appeals to me. I'm sorry, I know it's wrong. And I know I shouldn't be doing it. And I'll stop. Just please don't punish me. I looked up at my parents and they burst into laughter. In my mind I'm like, wow, I really do look pathetic. My dad is clutching his sides from laughing when he says "We were joking with you. We haven't found anything on your computer. We called you in here to tell you that we're just giving you money for your birthday." He barely gets those words out through him laughing. So I am relieved and shocked and glad that they didn't find anything. As I get up and start walking out the door, my mom stops laughing and says, "What were you so sorry about? What are you looking at?" And that's the cringe-worthy story about how I was tricked by my parents and how they found my pee. Oh, dude, I don't even. That's awful. Always plead not guilty till they tell you what they are talking about. I pulled the chair away from under my sizable grandma when she went to sit down to Christmas lunch in 1977. I was 6. She was 73. Stupidest thing about it was that it wasn't opportunistic. It was premeditated. I freaking planned it all out in my feeble brain, imagining I'd get a huge laugh and props from all around for executing such a smashing prank. Thankfully grandma wasn't killed outright when she crunched down flat on her back in front of 50 members of my family on Christmas Day. After everyone screamed in horror and rushed over to pick her up, our Ollie went on to live to 98 years old, passing peacefully in 2002. Nil to do with me. I still groan audibly and my stomach flip-flops when I think about Christmas 77. Thanks very freaking much for making me remember this, Reddit. But since I am here, rest well, Ollie. We love you. I'm crying from laughing. Thank you. Poor Ollie. Coming back from spring break in Cancun with my 3 best friends. We had a 3-hour layover in Miami en route to JFK. We're all about to board the plane when all of a sudden this guy, in sunglasses, with an enormous entourage surrounding him, makes his way through the crowd of passengers and cuts to the front of the line. American Airlines customer service was not having it and told the guy he was going to have to wait to board the plane like everyone else. The guy starts to explain that he's got a first class ticket and the rest of first class has already boarded, so he should be allowed to board before passengers sitting in business and coach. He gets denied and told to wait in line. Everyone knows he's a big deal, but can't figure out who he is, so they all just start asking for his autograph. The guy was pretty aggravated from being told to wait on the line, but obliged to signing some things. After about 3 minutes of watching everyone get this guy's autograph, my friends decide they want one too, and a picture. I was assigned to be the photographer, since I had zero interest in who this guy was, nor did I care, because the way I see it is if I can't recognize them they aren't that important to me, am I right? So, my 3 best friends get all cute and pose with this guy. I take the picture, they say thank you, and then there's just this moment of silence. Suddenly, I realize we still have no idea who the frick this guy is, so as soon as he says you're welcome I blurt out, and can we know who you even are? He just looked at me, disgusted. It turned out to be John Legend. Once at a church picnic I proclaimed to one of the deacons before a ball game, let's kick some clitoris maximus. I meant to say gluteus maximus. Either way it was cringeworthy. One time I was sitting on the floor watching TV and saw a jelly bean on the floor. Since it was right after Easter I thought nothing of it and picked it up. As I was about to pop it in my mouth I notice it feels sort of weird. I look at it and turn it over, and see 8 little squirming red legs. I throw that crap down and have a mini panic attack. It was a tick that was so filled with blood it looked like a big jelly bean. No. Woke up one morning when I was 14. There was an unfocused dark line crossing my line of sight. Assuming my eyes just needed to clear, I moved my hand toward my face to give them a quick rub. That's when the palm-sized spider scurried across my face. Couldn't sleep right for weeks. After I read that I made noise that I have never made before. Sounded like agape. Working in facility for the disabled, surrounded by people in wheelchairs. Some can't even move anything but their eyes. Some are so mentally handicapped they just twitch and drool. Some are almost completely normal. Co-worker tells hilarious story. I react by exclaiming loudly, man that is retarded, oh god why. Also used to have a bad habit of saying don't die after people sneezed. Once said it to an elderly relative at a funeral. Not my story, but my friend worked as a waiter in Chavis, which actually earned him some pretty nice tips. He enjoyed his job and enjoyed joking around with the customers. One day he was serving a family and the father was commenting on his own white skin. One of his kids asked if he should go out in the sun more, to which the father replied, I prefer to be in the shade. My friend asked, what are you, a vampire? Father, no, I have skin cancer. Oh man. Hopefully everyone sees this. I was at the reenactment of the Boston Massacre at the old State House. In the air there was the sweet aroma of a black and mild cigar. I love that smell so much. So much that I felt the need to say out loud, OMG I smell a black. Standing next to me was a black man and he said, what the frick did you just say? I profusely apologized and tried to explain I was referring to the cigar. I slowly moved over and never returned to that location. Haha, I pictured the black guy as 6'8" with a really deep, threatening voice, which makes it even more hilarious. When I was on the high school swim team, we were showering after practice when a guy walked into the shower area naked. Being teenage guys, we kept our suits on while showing. However, at first glance this guy looked like a teammate, so I sarcastically yelled, woohoo. Parties started and started clapping. It wasn't my friend. It was my dad's stockbroker. A few years later, and now he's my stockbroker. Every time I see him I cringe and think about what a retard I was. TLDR. 14-year-old me met my future stockbroker by cheering as he entered the room, naked. A girl whose mother died a few months earlier was telling me how she was going to have dinner in a posh restaurant. My scumbag brain decided to reply with, yay, well guess what? My mum's cooking mine. You jelly? I didn't realize I said it until a few minutes later in the conversation. Dude. About 5 years ago I was really stoned and it was around 3 AM. It was dark in the kitchen and the only thing to eat was peanut butter. I ate a few spoonfuls and was satisfied. So I sealed up the jar and went to bed. I woke up later on and decided I'd eat peanut butter again, only to open the jar and see the peanut butter was moving. There were what appeared to be thousands of tiny sugar ants inside the jar. I realized I had 8 spoonfuls of ant-covered peanut butter and haven't been able to eat it since. Not even a Reese's peanut butter cup. I once took a walking tour of Berlin. As we got close to the Holocaust Memorial, which is like 1,000 individual granite blocks, My friend that I was traveling with starts running towards them absent-mindedly and starts hopping from one to the other. The tour guide and I both shouted out at the same time to stop, but I still cringe thinking about it nowadays. So I know this guy, right? He's pretty nice. I see him around campus. We're friendly, and if we happen to be on the same flight we would try to sit next to each other, but we aren't besties or anything. That sort of friendship. So one day I go to study hall, which is completely empty except for him. He's got his computer and a bunch of school books out, taking up the space of maybe 3 people, which is totally fine. I mean the place is empty. So I pull a seat out so that it's next to him, but not in the way of his stuff, and he says, "Sorry, I take up a lot of space." To which I responded, "Don't worry about it, fatty." He just stares at me for a minute, says, "I'm anorexic," then packs up all his stuff and moves to the other side of the study hall, all while I'm desperately trying to apologize. TLDR. I called an anorexic kid fatty. For some reason I don't like him, and I don't even know why. It's not that I don't like anorexic people, I just don't like him. I was just thinking about this yesterday, may as well share it. When I was around 5 or 6, a guy my dad worked with died in a motorcycle accident. I wouldn't say they were close, but probably more than just acquaintances again. I was like 5, I say this based on how sad I remember my dad being. Not long after it happened, my mom and dad had his parents over for dinner. Now, my memories of this dinner are obviously really hazy. The only thing I remember vividly is what I said, but I think the mother said something like, "I just wish I could tell Josh," and then I fire back with, "Well, why don't you just dig him up, open his eyelids, and let him know again?" That's all I really remember. I've mercifully forgotten their reaction, although I vaguely remember my mom telling me later on that you're not supposed to say things like that. I know it doesn't really measure up to the toothpick or the ants, but this memory crops up every so often and it's the worst oh god why moment of my life. When I was in 1st grade, our school had a giant courtyard we played in. Scattered along this courtyard were these weird metal structures with cement blocks inside of them. I'm not sure what they were, but I know they were fun to climb. The cement blocks inside of them had these metal handles sticking straight out of them as well. So one particular day, I'm climbing this structure, I slip and I fall straight down onto the cement block, and the handle hits me right in the crotch. I cringe to say the least. TLDR. Climbing strange structure, fell down, took a metal handle to the vagina. To paraphrase Betty White, I don't understand the expression grow some balls. Balls are fragile and sensitive. It should be grow a vagina. Those things can't take a pounding. I know many of you will undoubtedly top this, but it still makes me cringe to this day. I was about 18, stoned and drunk chasing a friend down a hill towards a street. I stumbled at the curb and slid, face first, into the street and oncoming traffic. I heard screeching tires, the sound of colliding cars. Still face down in the street, I looked to my left to see a car bumper and a tire about a foot from my head. Stopped. That was my near Darwinian moment, and what could have been still haunts me. If you didn't poop your pants, you're 10x the man most of us are. When I was in kindergarten, I went to the bathroom all by myself. I was wearing sandals without any socks. I opened the bathroom door and stubbed my toe on it. I proceed to pee and then go back to class. When I get back, I look at my toe and all I see is blood. It turns out that I had ripped my big toenail clean off. That was the hardest I have ever cried in my entire life. I had a lady friend over. She was giving me head. She did not like to swallow. I did not know that. After I finished, I assumed she had swallowed as my head was leaned back on the couch and my eyes were closed getting head style. She asks if we are going to frick and I say heck yes. We get up, and I grab the cups off the table. As I head up the stairs with her in front, I take a huge gulp of water. Not water. Not anymore. Frothy, stringy, salty. Best description. I spewed it out onto her back. We still fricked. I know that is very similar to American Pie, or one of the sequels with Stifler doing it, but it happened to me years before those movies happened. I lost my left index finger when I was in 3rd grade. How? I was driving an ATV at a very young age. I was beginning to veer off the road because I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. So at a speed of 45 miles per hour or so I jerked real hard to the left. The ATV flipped over multiple times, and in shock, I gripped onto the handlebars, and my finger scraped against the pavement, bent backwards, and all but snapped off hanging on by the skin. My left arm was broken at the elbow, my skin on my lower back scabbed over from road burn and sealed to my clothing, having to eventually be peeled off later on. When they cleaned my finger, I was wide awake with no numbing agent. I watched the nurse as she picked bits of shattered bone and pebbles from the gaping wound that was my finger. I later learned that they tried healing the wound by reattaching the end of my finger, which failed. This resulted in me having a black dead fingertip sewn onto my stub for a week until I could go back to the doctor. They decided that it was unable to heal, so they wrapped the remaining muscle around the end of the bone and sewed it up. I cringe every time I think about it, but I'm thankful that I'm alive. I'm so sorry, I'd hate to lose one of my precious fingers. When I was young, say 7 or 8 years old, I was playing with Legos in my room. I had dumped the whole bin on the floor, basically covering it all in Lego, when my mom tells me that we are going for dinner and a movie. Excited me runs out of the room without cleaning up. When I get back at around 10 PM, my mother tells me to go straight to bed. I walk into my room without turning on the lights and step full force on a sea of Lego. Since the whole floor was covered, I could not regain balance by putting my other foot down. I ended up doing an odd painful penguin-like walk through an ocean of Lego to get to the soft safety that was my bed. To this day, I still remember the agonizing pain I had experienced that night. Awesome. I was on mushrooms in Amsterdam, just following my group through the streets, going to random places and different museums. Shortly after I'd given the person some money behind the counter for a ticket, I realized I was at the fricking Anne Frank house. Jesus Christ. I make it up the stairs and I'm shrooming, and meanwhile little hidden stereo voices are going they're coming, emulating the sound of persecuted Jews hiding in the attic at the top of the stairs I'm walking out of, and holy frick, not now, no, ha 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 ha, and I am freaking laughing hysterically, reaching my peak at the top of the Anne Frank stairs, and I am laughing my butt off. I cannot help it. I am fully aware of how wrong this is. So, I guess instinctively, I bury my face in my hands and act like I'm bawling. Like this is how an American laughs like, and story's over. Can't stop laughing. Great story. I thought my pie's daughters were sons. They are young and had bowl cuts and were wearing androgynous clothing. The worst part is that he corrected me and I did believe him for a solid minute. Many years ago, I was at an AA meeting. There was a guy there who I knew by face and who I would chat with once in a while. It was a birthday night and he asked me to introduce him. Only I didn't actually know his name or really anything at all about him. I said yes. That was quite the cringe-worthy experience. One night, I had meatloaf for dinner but didn't finish it all. So the next day, I decided to have a piece of the leftover meatloaf that had accidentally been left on the counter. I didn't even look at it to see if there was anything on it and bit it. Then I felt something tickle my face. I thought it was my hair and continued eating. That's when I bit into something that exploded in my mouth. It was extremely sour, so I thought something was wrong with the meatloaf, so I threw it out. I went back to the counter to find half of an ant struggling to get up and walk, though it had no abdomen. Turns out the ant had been on the piece of meatloaf I bit into, and I bit its freaking butt off and ate it. I will never again eat meatloaf. TLDR. Bit into meatloaf that had been left out all night and ended up biting half of an ant off and the other half of said ant ran across my face. I'm more disgusted that you left meat out overnight and then ate it. But seriously though, the ant is gross too. When I was about 7, I was eating Buncher Crunch and watching TV late at night. Buncher Crunch is that chocolate that is in crunchy little balls. It was dark and the TV supported the only light. I dropped the whole box of Buncher Crunch on the floor, so I start to pick them all up and eat them. I came across something that was a little softer, but still the shape I was looking for. I popped it in my mouth and instantly realized that poop tastes exactly how it smells. I ran to bathroom and wiped my mouth out because I really had just eaten a small piece of crap. How that elusive crap got on the floor, I have no goddamn idea. We had no pets at the time, but goddang it, that was a piece of crap. It's pretty unmistakable. One time I was helping my high school debate team clean up from a fundraising event when I decided to show off my skills. I started swinging around my broom like it was a staff and accidentally hit my favorite teacher in the face as she came around the corner. I keep asking myself, what the frick made me think that swinging a broom around in a small space like that was okay? I want to erase that memory so bad. Warning, this is a crappy story. For years in high school I crushed on this guy. When he finally texted me after high school, I explained my love for him and told him that I would make him like me no matter what it took because I always get the guys I like. Except, I'm ugly and have never had a boyfriend. In theory, I thought it was funny and confident and all that great crap. Looking back, it was really freaking creepy and I'll probably never live that down. My story isn't that great compared to others, but I still feel waves of shame and embarrassment when I think about it. This is going to get buried, but in 9th grade I went on a snorkeling trip with my biology class. I almost drowned BC my mask wasn't on tight enough, and the first words out of my mouth when I crawled up on shore to my friends like some sort of ragged crab was, "There is so much water in my vagina." I looked over and see my biology teacher staring straight at me. A couple weeks later, each member of our class had to write a long paper about our findings in the ocean. When I got mine back from this same teacher, I noticed that I had misspelled disc and wrote dong instead. TSK. At the time I was a fairly hardcore triathlete. I had only time for other athletes and had just broken up with a triathlete girlfriend and some time later started dating another triathlete girl. It was super early in the morning at a triathlon with a new girl. I hadn't gotten much sleep and we were busy getting ready for the race. We meet some people. Hi, oh, and this is my girlfriend Amy. A little while later, oathbreaker. My name is Heather, not Amy. I swear to you I did not break up with the new girl only to protect myself from having to face my shame every time I saw her or went anywhere with her. There were plenty of other, much more legitimate, real issues involved. Apparently this guy is a triathlete. I asked a girl out like 3 times in one day because I was young, stupid, and unable to read signals. She then joked that she was actually a lesbian because I asked too much. Very embarrassing. Upside is that we are good friends now, so it wasn't all bad. I've lived a nightmare no brother wants to live. I've been there, man. I know the feel, but the incident left me stronger, so much stronger. I'll never fear the Red River again. My sister went off to college on my 13th birthday. Best birthday ever. I even got my own room for the first time in my life. Well, she came back the summer after, as many college students do. Nice little me cleaned my room perfectly for her and told her she could have her room for the time she was home. She told me she wouldn't need it since she was going to be sleeping at friends' houses most of the time and that I should just sleep there. So my innocent self goes to sleep with my nice clear floor. When I wake up, I step out of bed, but something is wrong here. What is wet on my floor? I look down to see. My god, the horror. I guess my sister, while drunk out with friends, started her period, and by that I mean murdered someone in her pants. She decided to stop by the house to change, and for whatever freaking reason, thought my room would be a fine place to do that. She forgot to clean up. I'm horrified by how close these were to my bed. WTF sis? I screamed, ran to the bathroom crying, and scrubbed my foot for about 30 minutes straight after I realized what it was. Now, it's just a funny story to laugh about, and it really did make me a stronger man. Girlfriend starts her period while we're banging? Shrug it off. No problem. She leaves a tampon in the bathroom, so that which doesn't kill you simply makes you stronger. TLDR. Drunk sister changed in her old room after starting her period. Left dirty panties next to my bed for me to step on when I woke to what I thought was my clean room from the night before. Thank you, Kelly Clarkson. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.